Okay, at 7 o'clock, I'd like to call a meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just make a note on the roll that Jesse's absent tonight. Old business, approval of minutes. The regular meeting minutes of September 1st, 2022 were provided for review. I need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 1st, 2022 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Stednicka?
Yes.
Mr. Trinkle?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Abstain.
Motion passed. Audience
Yes.
participant. What's that?
One more.
Me and Dan.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Tony wants
Motion
to go
passed again.
The mayor wants to go watch a game.
No, I was just going to the next thing. There was a gap there, and nobody said anything for 20 minutes, so I thought maybe that the motion had passed. Okay. Audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the council on any issue? Connie, you're the only one in the audience. Wait, no. Connie says no. New business. Item number 2 is Neighborhood Revitalization Plan Review. The Neighborhood Revitalization Plan is intended to promote the revitalization and development of the city of Lansing by stimulating new construction and by rehabilitating, conserving, or redeveloping an area by offering certain incentives, which include tax rebates. This item is to review and discuss the plan as well as the continuation of the program. The plan has been in place since 2002. While the plan does decrease the property taxes that the taxing entities would receive up front, staff believes the long-term impacts far outweigh the short-term impacts of reduction of taxes. Need a motion to approve the renewal of the Neighborhood Revitalization Plan and authorize the mayor to sign a continuance of the plan with no changes to the plan scope or boundary, with the next renewal to occur in September of 2027.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
One quick question. Is this going to involve the program that we got going in Ward 1? Can they have both? You know,
You talking about the infill development program?
Yeah, where if you're building a house back where one's tore down.
So they're different things. The infill development program is a waiving of building permit fees, and it's for new construction. This can't be used for new construction in residential.
What
It can
about
be
like
used for remodeling.
Well, what about like along 4th Street where there's houses that have been tore down, but they're in the business zone? Is that, and they're still in Ward 1? They fall under that?
They would fall if it's are you talking about like just north of the Chatterbox, for example?
Yeah.
So that property would fall under the neighborhood revitalization. If there was a commercial project that wanted to come build on that, they would be eligible to use neighborhood revitalization to help facilitate that program or that project.
But the other program wouldn't go with
The infill development is they wouldn't be allowed to build a single family home in a resident or in a
So
commercial
that is
zone
only
district.
for single family. Businesses is not included in that. I didn't remember.
In the infill development,
Yeah.
no.
No, it's
The
just
infill is just residential. It's just to help with residential.
I just wanted to get that. I didn't know whether or not they were both.
They're kind of intertwined, but not the same type of program. So,
Okay.
did you want me to run through it?
Anybody want any more information on it or have questions on it?
I asked them before the meeting.
Okay.
I read it thoroughly.
Good
I have
enough.
a motion and a
Or you do
second.
something we've already been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just renewal of what we've already been doing.
All right.
But we didn't know if the council wanted me to run through how the program works, how it functions. That
Yeah, I
type of
had
stuff.
Matt ready to go just in case you wanted to. So,
I'm good. Good.
Okay.
all right. And we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Stednicka?
Yes.
Mr. Trinkle?
Yeah.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Pause.
Pause.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Confusion.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Not gonna live that one down, are you?
Item number 3.
Bravo.
Ordinance number 1089, updating Chapter 4, Article 7, Fences, Section 701, Permit Required, Fee, and Section 705, Residential Fence Standards of the City of Lansing, Kansas Code. During the August 25th City Council work session, staff discussed with the council potential updates to the city code in reference to the requirements for fence permits and fence locations in Lansing. The ordinance will codify the code with the changes discussed. Proposals will be open and evaluated by either the city council or a special committee of the city council. Need a motion to approve? What's that?
There's no proposals.
Yeah, I apologize. I meant to. I
That
forgot
last
to-
bullet point is,
Say that again.
The proposals bullet point's not for this item.
No.
Oh.
We already did the proposal.
I was wondering what the proposals would be.
Yeah.
If somebody had to submit a proposal for a fence, that's what I was thinking.
Ish, everybody makes mistakes.
That's okay.
Relax, relax.
Everything's
Paper's
good.
going in the file cabinet.
So ordinance will codify the code with the changes discussed. The action is a motion to approve ordinance number 1089, an ordinance updating Chapter 4, Article 7, fences, Section 701, permit required, fee, and Section 705, residential fences standards of the City of Lansing, Kansas Code.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that one?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Gene.
705, number 2. Somebody buys a piece of property, invests several $100,000 and want to put a fence up on the property line, they have to have their neighbor's permission. Why?
It's a carryover from what was in the code before. I honestly can't give you a really good reason why, because that's been in the code for longer than Tim or I, either one, have been here as far as I know.
I believe it has. When you use the term property line, that's the line that divides a property. So if you're putting it directly on that line, it's half on your space, half on his.
Okay.
Well, you can't put stuff on my property, Gene, without asking me. That's all it's saying is basically you have to, if you want to put it right on the line, you're going to have to talk to your neighbor.
Put it 3 inches inside the line, you're good.
That's right.
you're not leaving yourself a maintenance. You know, kind of your own self-created maintenance. How are you going to weed eat on the other side? How are you going to repair the fence without trespassing? Let's say you don't get along with your neighbor. Hey, you can't come on my property. Well, then how are you going to fix your fence?
Well,
Unless everything's done from the
That's
inside.
that's the way it was explained to me. You have
Okay.
to leave a maintenance on that side of the fence.
and I took a drive through some neighborhoods this afternoon, and I'm going to tell you that don't work.
It creates a lot of no man's zones where nobody
It
maintains,
certainly
nobody
does.
mows.
It certainly does.
There's no
Yeah.
question, but how
Yes.
do you get around it if you have warring neighbors? For example?
Right. I mean, both the neighbors on both sides of my house said, yeah, hey, let's build it together. And that we all went in, and there's only one fence on both sides and not a double fence anywhere. But we all talked about it. So you really can't make it so you can put it on the property line without talking to your neighbor because that's half of his property. I mean, my view is that legally correct.
Well, you would have to brush up to that millimeter.
Right.
You know,
And we're-
because
plus,
again,
if you
there's gonna be a threshold where you're on the other person's property, or you got to be, there's that. pencil line.
Yeah, part of the reason is if, Gene, for example, if you bought the property and there's no fences anywhere, and then you said, hey, I'm not on the property line, someone's going to say you are, and then somebody's going to have to survey it. If you want to prove it, then somebody's going to survey that piece of property and tell you exactly where the line is,
Okay.
and that costs like $3,000. You could have built 6 fences for that.
So right now, as long as you're complying with right-of-way, if you just want to go out there and eyeball a fence, do that?
What do you mean comply? No. No, it's not quite that simple.
Okay.
The way that process typically works, somebody comes in and applies for a fence permit. They give us a site plan. They show on the site plan where they want to construct the fence. We require them to locate the property corners. Now, they can locate them themselves, or they can hire a surveyor to do that, whichever they would prefer to do. But we have to have some sort of identification of where the property corners are at. Then our inspector goes out, verifies those corners, then we issue the permit.
And so every piece of property, and I realize that Ward 1, the north end, is not the same as everywhere else, where at one point you were just building wherever you felt the urge to build. All of them are marked with some sort of... we don't
They're
know.
supposed to be. That's what the code says we're supposed to do.
All right.
That's a good point, though. I mean, we got a lot of spots out there with this much distance between two fences that nobody's taking care of.
No,
Right.
I mean, I drove by and there's some that literally you couldn't push a mower through.
Right.
But I mean,
And some you could ride a mower through.
Yes.
code-wise, you could
And
probably.
there's some that are hooked, there's no fence at all, and both of them's got privacy fence.
We've had, wow, that was loud all of a sudden. We've had,
Okay,
are you messing with stuff back there?
I'm trying to hear you.
Well, you can hear me for sure now. I think the neighbors can hear us. Totally threw me off. You want me to back up or?
Get there.
Okay. We've had people come in before and ask about, their neighbor connected to a fence that they constructed, and they were upset about it. And typically when that happens, we tell them it's really a civil issue. It's not something that we get involved in. Property line disputes, things like that, it's between two private parties, and those two individual parties need to work that out. So, I mean,
I'm not going to belabor it. Everybody's anxious to get home.
No, I mean,
we could, if you want us to, we can certainly do some research on how other cities handle this.
yeah, I mean, if you want, Gene. I mean, the legal side of it, I think,
I will
is.
bet it's very, very similar.
I can tell you
It's up
that,
to the property owners. We really don't get into dispute other than
Right.
what Matt's office
Right.
has to do to check off to
Right.
allow the construction. Other than that, if somebody's trespassing, so to speak, or there's a dispute, that's up to the landowners to resolve.
Right.
Yeah, no, I was getting at the property line being a pretty small line. It's not like the
Right.
width of a fence post, right? So, I mean, when you put one in right on the property line, it's on two people's property, basically. So
I
you
can
have
tell
to
you-
agree with it, and that's what this code says, is you
Right.
got to get agreement if you're doing that. If you don't want to do that and you want to pull it off the property line, you don't need to talk to your neighbor.
right. I don't want to belabor the point either, but I can tell you that the city that I have the most experience with, of course, is Shawnee, 'cause that's where I was at before I came here, and they don't require this foot separation, but they also don't permit fences. They tell them it's a private entity. They don't issue a permit at all. It's your responsibility as a property owner to figure out where your property's at, and you handle it, and the city doesn't get involved in it at all.
Okay.
So,
You get some,
just different ways of handling it. But I know from talking with Tim earlier, I think you said Ellsworth handles it this way, that they have the same type of,
My previous community did the same thing. You were required to
Yeah.
write something that says,
Right.
my neighbor has a fence on the property line. To Mr. Kirby's point, though, I know my home now has one of those no man's lands, and it's really tight. And when I mow it, I can't even turn around. It's so tight. Like I have to walk backwards to get out of it. So I mean, it does create challenges.
Okay.
But we're, like Matt said, we're happy to research this, find out what other cities want to do. Again, though, this is one of those things that's already in the code right now. The
Right.
point that you're
That's why-
asking about.
and that's why I presented it this way, because it was just
Yeah.
carrying over what was there.
Well, and that's okay, and I don't think there's an appetite to study it any further, so I'm not going to
Okay,
take the vote and move on.
okay,
All right, thank you.
sure.
anyone else on this one? All right, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Brungart,
Yes.
Mr. Stednicka,
Yes.
Mr. Trinkle,
Yeah.
Mr. Kirby,
No.
Mr. Major,
Yes.
Mr. Bueller,
Yes.
Mr.
Pause.
Clemens.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item number 4 is ordinance 1090, updating Chapter 9, Article 3, Environmental Requirements, Section 313, Weeds and Grass of the City of Lansing, Kansas Code. During the August 25th City Council work session, staff discussed with the council potential updates to the city code in reference to allowable grass heights in Lansing. I need a motion to approve ordinance 1090, an ordinance updating Chapter 9, Article 3, Environmental Requirements, Section 313, Weeds and Grass of the City of Lansing, Kansas Code.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on this one?
So we're increasing the height?
Actually, no.
Or decreasing.
Decreasing.
Huh?
Decreasing. It was 12
Like we
inches.
discussed.
It was 12 inches, and now it'll be 10 inches for residential and 8 inches for commercial, with some caveats for agricultural zone, areas that are more rural.
Is it gonna cause any problem with the code enforcement, or making sure that are they having any trouble with the way it is before we change anything?
I don't think it's going to cause any additional concerns. It may cause him a little bit more work, but
They probably
that's
don't get
okay.
out with a ruler and measure it anyway, do they?
He does not at this point. We've had some discussions about some better ways to address that, because there's certainly been some places in town where it's gotten more than 12 inches before we've moved forward with getting it addressed.
If you can, it's up high enough to bail, you know that it needs to be mowed.
Yeah.
I didn't think that they actually got out, but I didn't. We don't need to be adding more of a problem to something if they have a problem.
I think
already.
this actually starts the process earlier, too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the big thing that we talked about at the work session, is especially in commercial zones at 8 inches, we can write that letter and contact the property owner,
Right.
maybe 5 or 6 days earlier than we do when it's 12 inches. So a big part of it was just being able to reach people faster.
Right.
Fair enough.
Okay, anyone else on that?
Good work.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Stednica?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Motion passed. Reports, department heads, anything? Steve? No? City attorney?
Nothing to report.
And Tim, city administrator.
So there's a blood drive tomorrow afternoon, so if you're free tomorrow afternoon, come by the community center and feel free to donate blood if you can. There is a shortage right now. Speaking of the community center sprinkler repairs, that was a lot more time consuming and labor intensive than we originally thought. We had to go without water in City Hall for about a day and a half, but I think it's mostly repaired, and we're thankful for that. Our meeting with AT&T, big thank you to Councilman Clemens and Councilman Major. I thought it was really positive for AT&T to see you two be there and express your concerns to them. That was a really productive meeting. And also, we have that meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. To discuss the retaining wall failure at the town center detention ponds. So just remember that, Mr. Kirby, Clemens, and Brungard. So
Here.
It's in here. Yep. And that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Carrie?
I talked to Tim or sent him an email on this, but I was very, very impressed with the pool education information they put together. I really thought that was outstanding. I love the 3D where you could look at it. And I really feel some momentum and people being really positive about this. So, I know we're supposed to kind of not show our opinions one way or another, which I really hope we get the pool. So
Well, there you go.
I think it's long overdue, and I just what you put together. So Tim, to you and your staff, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Go Chiefs, go Hawks. That's all I've got, Mayor.
Don? Thanks, Carrie.
I don't have anything, Mayor.
Thanks. Dave?
I don't have anything there.
Dean?
Oh, thank you.
Marcus?
Yeah, I want to echo what he said. What Gary said. That's really informative. I've had a lot of people in our Ward 2 have reached out to me and asked to include the St. Mary's coach. So I turned him on.
Yeah.
I know he's been anxious to get with you as well to help facilitate the lanes and maybe future, if it's voted in, the Aquatic Center voted in, maybe future external swim meets, and that will bring people into the city and all that kind of good stuff. So I look forward to that. So hopefully he's providing some good insights on that. And then the other thing I've got is, hey, this is a lot of good work, guys. This is great work. There's 3 things here that is make positive changes to Lansing renewal and make positive changes, and I appreciate everybody's work on that. That's all I got, Mayor.
All right, thanks, Marcus. Greg?
Yeah, I have also had a lot of questions about the pool and the website, and it's a great way to reach everybody. So, again, great work. And on this day, in 1981, the United States Senate Committee on the Judiciary unanimously appointed Sandra Day O'Connor to become the first female justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. That's all I have, Mayor.
Very nice. Dan?
Well, our HOA has 3 people that are involved in swimming on the board, and we're moving our board a week later so they can go to the October 12th briefing for Tim. That tells you what kind of interest there is. The only comment they had is the people that are in the meets wanted 2 more lanes than what you depicted.
Oh.
Because the meets would go faster. But it's one of the few in this area that would be outside 25-meter capable. So they were really excited about it. So we are doing that, and I talked with Tim about sending me some of the brochures so we can put it up on our Facebook site and everything. I don't know if you want to do it.
Not promoting it or anything.
Not promoting it,
Just
just
providing information.
educating.
Yeah.
I'm not putting anything out.
No,
I'm
sure,
getting
yeah.
material from Tim.
But the
Just-
HOA.
I'm just clarifying.
Yes. I do have some questions about the fire district and the Supreme Court stuff. 3 questions. I'll keep it short. First of all, when do we have to notify the district of our intentions?
By the end of the year.
By the end of this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's if your projected date is that summer of 2024 with the start date of January of 2025.
So if we alert them in December, the earliest we can assume is the starting at 25.
Well, that would be for a budgeting thing that you
Yeah.
and Tim and everybody have to work out for when you want it to actually budget and kick off. But the notice is for the 18 months to start the process of discussions and negotiations in reference to the assignment and distribution of liabilities and assets during that 18-month period.
And do we intend to hire an advisor to help? Because I don't want to put the fire chief into a conflict of interest while he's actively supporting all 3 townships.
Yeah, I mean, that will not be discussed tonight for sure.
Understand?
I've been talking to Tim about needing to have a meeting so we can discuss and plan this out with the timelines. But anything we do is not going to impact the chief and what his role is until a transition occurs. So
That makes me feel
Yeah.
better. You know, I don't want anything to impact the chief.
At one
He's done
point,
a
we
good job.
At one point, we had a consultant that we asked questions to, and that was pre-lawsuit, so that's probably 3 or 4 years ago. But at one point, we had a consultant that we referred questions to about things.
So instead of asking the last question, I'd ask Mayor, let's get it on a work session so we can discuss it.
yeah, we're planning one.
With that, I move to conclude the meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Call a roll.
Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Mr. Stednica?
Yes.
Mr. Trinkle?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
We are adjourned.